Welcome, everyone. This is the April 2022 Maturity Model for Microsoft 365 practitioners. You may be wondering, why is David talking today? Well, I am going to be your guest MC for the day because we have a special occasion today. This is a 1-year anniversary for Maturity Model practitioners. So we are extremely excited, and it's going to be a lot of open format. I am really just here to help keep things flowing and organized. So let's move into the agenda for today. We'll cover the overview, which includes artifacts and updates, purpose, how to get more involved. We'll have the ever popular picture time together mode opportunity. And then I think it's going to be a round robin of practitioner stories, insights. What have we learned over the last year? And I think this is really meant to not just reflect on those that are running the calls here, but everybody would want to get involved. We'd love to hear what's worked, what have you learned in the year, what's not worked, and really make it a collaborative, open opportunity for everyone to learn from each other because we're one big community family. The approach and articles on Microsoft Docs, I'm going to hand this over to Marc or one other member of the team to start talking about this one.
Sure, I can certainly talk about this. So this is the map that we've been maintaining that sort of shows you everything that is a part of the maturity model at the moment. You know, the purpose is sort of our mission statement in a bunch of bullets is listed down the left, and then the artifacts that we've got in the repo are listed on the right. There are always some things in progress, and since this is open source, of course, everything is continually improving, and we actually might talk about some of the proposed improvements that we'll make, that we'd like to make in the repo as we enter our second year. So there's a lot of content there. Some of it may be, of interest to you at different times of your maturity journey. You might focus on something like collaboration early on, and get into people in communities later, or vice versa. So you can use this content as you see fit in the order that you see fit based on what your needs are.
And Marc, it's interesting, this information on Microsoft Docs, that must be totally controlled all by Microsoft employees, right?
No. Actually, we've started this as a core team of people. I think all of us are on the call except for Sadie, who started this whole thing with the SharePoint maturity model. But we have a core team of people who are focused on trying to get initial cuts of things out there, and then hopefully we'd like to get more and more input from the community. So it's actually, while it sits on docs.microsoft.com as part of the Microsoft 365 community docs, it's entirely community generated. We have people at Microsoft who are very interested in this, and we've heard that, in fact, some of the consulting staff there, MCS type people are using this with some of their clients, which is awesome. But it's a community effort.
That is great to know. So I guess the next question that would beg to be answered, that we'll answer eventually here, is how can you get involved and what's in it for you, right? Well, let's answer the second most important and fun part of it, is what's in it for you. You are going to be considered a contributor in the community, which is excellent, but not just, in some way of, hey, congratulations, we all support you in our hearts and minds. We do, but we also want to formally recognize those in the community that are doing this level of contribution. And so we have the recognition program, the community recognition program, which, if you're not familiar with, is, you can see a glimpse of it here. We've got a dedicated badge for community content authors, which is exactly what Marc's talking about around the community content. Maybe heard it as community docs. And we want to formally and officially recognize everyone that's doing this work. There's no contribution that's too small. And when we say it's too small, no contribution is too small. You could change a punctuation, you could change a casing, you could change some of the wording. That is a contribution to make it better for everyone in the community, and we want to recognize it. Now, what's cool about this recognition program is, because it's powered by Credly, that's the same Credly that handles the certification badges for Microsoft certifications, it is going to sit right alongside those. And you can attach it to your LinkedIn, you can attach it to your website, you can share it on Twitter. And you may think, well, this is all neat and nice, but let's face it, we're all in business to be in business, right? Whether we're Microsoft employees, whether we're consultants, whether we're at an organization where we report to a manager. And so this is going to provide you the opportunity to show how you are involved in making a difference. And that means that you're able to share that with clients and with managers or both. And we wanted to find a way to formally recognize everyone in a way that would allow you to do that. So we do need everyone to opt in for this, though. What we do is we tie it to your GitHub account. And again, if GitHub is a foreign word to you, don't worry. We're going to cover you here in a few moments. But if you go to aka.ms/m365pnv-recognition, you can find where you can register. You just provide your email. There's no cost. The community covers the cost for you entirely. And it's a great way to get involved. And we're going to be having some more campaigns around the maturity model, as well as community content available to you.
I just want to say, David, I had a real buzz when I was able to put one of these on the bottom of my my signature list. Never been able to do it before. It's always just been my company branding, and to be able to add this to my thing, I got a genuine buzz out of it. So thank you for that. Yeah,
that's awesome. And I think that there's validity to that, because I think historically there's been a stereotype of, well, these kinds of badges and contributions have to include curly braces, right? No, that's not true at all. There's a ton of opportunity and wide spectrum to get involved, to contribute, and all of that should be celebrated and recognized. So there's going to be even more to come, and we're really excited for that.
I think we're just going to step back aside for something that David wanted to pick up.
David had a
We're
question.
just going to finish up getting involved, and then we'll go back to the question since we're talking about recognition. So there's a couple of different ways to get involved. You can, of course, contribute to the articles, whether that's reviewing and giving feedback, providing small edits, or writing some of your own. You can also socialize the content. That's really helpful for us to make sure that it gets out into the world and in front of everyone for those other people who want to give feedback as well. And then, of course, in these calls, and especially today, we love hearing your experiences and any case studies that you have. If you have something that you want to share at a future practitioners meeting, we would love to talk with you about that. We also have programs for first-time presenters. So maybe you have a story, but you're not fully comfortable presenting on a call just yet. We're here to partner with you on that. So any level of interest that you have is not too big or too small. We would love to have you involved. And then hopping back to that slide for David's question.
Thank you, I appreciate that. So if I understand the color schematics correctly, we have artifacts where it's solidly colored. However, how to elevate and principles of are something we're working on currently. Is that how I'm supposed to read that?
Not quite. In theory, everything which is, as you say, in a sort of a washed out color is being worked on. There is an error on there. All of the Elevate articles exist, apart from governance, risk and compliance, which should be washed out, because I'm still working on that at the moment.
Okay, excellent. Because I definitely do have some things. Should I just write a synopsis of my thoughts to the board here, or just present it to Marc? How would I go about actually jumping in?
Okay, there are multiple ways of engaging. I mean, the kind of the most straightforward and perhaps least personal way is to click on the feedback button within one of the competencies, and that will take you straight into the ability to, to put comments in the document, edit it yourself if you've got a GitHub account, or provide observations that the core team can pick up and act on. But equally well, you can reach out to any of us. You've got access to our emails and our Twitters and our phone numbers if you want, and just call us up and have a chat if you'd like to do it that way. So whatever you like to do, David, because we're absolutely here to help, and you wouldn't be the first to do any of those things, which is great.
And you can also just go to the article. There's an edit button in the upper right. You can do a pull request. So if and that's one of the ways that people fix punctuation. They let us know there's something wrong, or they issue a pull request for it. So you can, it's really a wide spectrum. It's not email Marc, Nope. Marc is, well, it is email any one of us, but this isn't my thing. This is our thing. This is a community thing. So, that we want to make it as easy as possible for you to get in touch with us as a group, discuss things in an open forum. If you think you have something that you'd like to contribute, there's actually a discussion in the GitHub area, which gets very little use, but it's a great place for us to have an asynchronous conversation about what you might be interested in. If you think, well, I might want to write something up, but I'm not sure if it's going to be useful, we can discuss that, and odds are it will be useful. We might just make some suggestions about, scope or something like that.
And equally, these sessions, these practitioner sessions, are also that forum. In almost every case, after we've run a practitioner session, we've gone away and actually done some tweaks, or in some cases, some substantial improvements to the documents which are already out there. And one of the core themes for today is for us to talk about some ideas we've got, which I might be preempting David's spiel here, but some ideas we've got for actually improving the documents we've got. We want to run those past you before we do that.
Brilliant.
Now, Marc, you had I'm sorry, David, did that cover everything for you?
It did. Thank you.
Excellent. Now, Marc mentioned something that may sound like it may require some physical activity, a pull request, right? Is that some sort of tug of war thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's
going back to
it's
junior high
physical.
again. I don't know what I'm going to do. I always get picked last. So if we go into that next slide, again on the practitioner's model for Microsoft 365 2 ahead, it talks about how to get involved. And one of those things is sharing is caring. Now, it's been mentioned a little bit here, but just to provide a little bit more context to it, these are live hands-on sessions. They're going to provide you a safe space opportunity. It's not recorded. And so you're free to come in and ask any and all questions that you would like without feeling like, oh, I don't want this recorded and shared with the world. Because I get it. We all started somewhere where we were foreign or new to some sort of process. And GitHub, where all this documentation lives, is full of frustrating naming conventions and processes, things like fork and pull request and raw and blame. It doesn't make any sense at all, right? But there's a process to it, and we want to show you how to do that. Sharing is Caring is actually going to provide that live hands-on. So in the community docs, Sharing is Caring session, we actually walk you through how to contribute a community doc. It's in a sandbox. You're not going to worry about messing up production. We've got a safe space sandbox to do that work within, which is the Sharing is Caring repository. And we'll explain all those terms. What is a commit? What is a pull request? How do you get things changed? What level of contribution can I make? Is it my place to make changes in this area? Those are valid questions, because we may shut ourselves down before we even take the step to get involved because we think, well, it's not my place to get involved. It absolutely is your place. And we're going to empower you to find your place. Whatever that sweet spot is that you want to get started in, we're going to be able to show you in those sessions. And they're free, no cost, safe space opportunities to collaborate with other members of the community as well. And guess what? You're going to get a badge for it. You're actually doing something on those calls that is a contribution, and you're going to get a badge for it, and you're going to be recognized for it. So don't hesitate to sign up. As Emily mentioned, we have a community docs session coming up, and you can see it there at aka.ms/sharing is caring, and free to join again anytime. We've got regular sessions going on all the time, and reach out if you have any questions, because we're always willing to put some time aside to meet up with you directly if you have any questions on that. With that, are there any questions? Again, this is meant to be collaborative. So is there any questions that anybody has about the recognition program or about the Sharing is Caring program? All right, well, let's dive into the next collection of slides, which is going to cover the benchmarks to measure your organization. And I will hand this back to members of the team, whether the Simons or Marc or a combination of both.
So I'll pick this up. As we go through each month, this has been evolved over the last year, hasn't it? So with the maturity model, we've got our 5 levels, starting at level 100, working our way up through from that chaotic stage up through to level 2, 300, which is kind of our standard benchmark. This is where we think organizations should be, where you've got consistency across the organization, up to being able to sort of measure level 400 to improving and making continual improvements at level 500. So you're optimizing your processes. If you move on to the next slide, please. This slide is again, it's the same model, but we're just kind of providing some intent. So we've got the characteristics in the middle there, but we want to kind of give an overview. What's the intent for each of these levels? What are we looking to do? So again, that level 100 where it's chaotic, we're wanting to do more than at the moment we're just kind of reacting to problems and putting the fires out and just keeping things running, but we're not really doing that in a structured way. Whereas level 200, we're starting to realize that we need to understand what we should be doing and how we should do it. And then level 300, we've got some defined policies and procedures and processes. And again, so we're just this slide is taking those levels and just putting some a goal around what we're looking for to get out of being at that level for that particular competency.
And I guess this is just another way of thinking about the same thing. I think what we've done here is just we've stuck a normal curve, Poisson distribution or whatever you want to call that thing in the background, just to remind us that the objective here is not necessarily to be best of breed. Very, very few organizations can become a level 500, and even then only in probably a subset of what they do. Most organizations are going to hang out around the 300 level with pockets of expertise and excellence, and probably even the ones that are great organizations will have pockets of expertise, and we're just getting started at this. So I don't think you've got to be brilliant everywhere in the organization. That's not the idea. Be brilliant where you need to be brilliant, be under control most places, and be a bit chaotic and startup mentality where that's still appropriate.
And I think I will add one little comment, because we were chatting about this before when we were prepping for this. And I think one of the things that especially this team has really learned is as we've gone through the different specific areas, we've matured in terms of how we do things and what we think about things and how we look at what the maturity level even means, because sometimes I think you think it's one thing, but then as we've talked to different people and been challenged on different ideas, it's allowed us to really rethink what is maturity and what does that even look like? And we've had a lot of great conversations around cultural awareness and stability, and to Simon's point, the fact that are we really even trying to get to 500, or are we just understanding where we're at? Is that a maturity step in and of itself? And so I think we've learned a lot about what maturity even means through the process of doing this.
So
okay,
one year in.
Yeah, take it away, David.
Yeah, I was going to say, so we're 1 year in. What's next? TBA, right? To be announced, I guess, to be determined, to be figured out together. Any feedback on that? Any excitement? This is your opportunity to be like Marvel, right? Where we're like, ooh, we're gonna tease out something.
We're always looking for requests for content of what you're specifically interested in and maybe some areas you're struggling. So if anyone has some requests for what you would like us to focus on next month, we're absolutely happy to take that into consideration too. Feel free to put it in the chat if you're a little shyer about coming off mute too.
We keep promising that we'll release a new document. Of course, the reality is we just can't turn around documents every month. Some of these things are quite complex, and some of them are very much community efforts, and we'll reach out to a bunch of experts across the world to pull them together, and they can take several months. So our delivery program is neither structured nor regular. So We might possibly get the GRC Elevate document out, and if we do, we'll do a session on that when it's ready. But in the meantime, anything that you'd like us to focus on, or in fact, anything you'd like to bring to the table and have an open discussion around, let's hear it.
And with that, actually, there's a hand up. So Haritha, would you like to come off of mute?
Sure. I was hoping that whatever we are doing in our organization or with clients, there's no designation to us. I think we fall. Someone calls us digital workplace experts. Someone calls us modern workplace. Someone calls M365 architects. There is so much confusion, even while finding candidates who can actually do this for us. I feel like it's all over the place when looking for skills who match whatever we're doing here. Is it something that we can work on and say this is what these people are called and this is what they bring?
What specifically are you? What specific problems are you trying to solve? I mean, yes, marketing departments the world over keep coming up with new phrases for everything, but are there specific problems or skill sets that you think need to be in a bucket?
Yeah, so someone who can actually drive the maturity model. Like I do that at my organization, but I'm not called any of what I hear from outside world. I am still director of SharePoint services. So they're like labels stuck with us and they can't think of anything outside SharePoint when we talk about Microsoft 365. And they're very strong, even with recruiters and everybody. So what is Microsoft doing to separate us and say, hey, yes, they understand SharePoint. And in fact, SharePoint is the base for everything like Teams, OneDrive, and everything that goes around it. But how do we elevate ourselves and say, yes, we do SharePoint, but there's so much more to this. And I don't know if I'm explaining myself right.
Well, no, that's good. First of all, this isn't a Microsoft effort, though David works at Microsoft now. We have some people who are very helpful for us, and help champion this effort inside Microsoft. But this is very much a community effort instead. I think, if I were to sort of come up with what the person's label might be who does this stuff, it's often what somebody who calls themselves a Microsoft 365 architect. But that also has a technical aspect, usually is a technical aspect as well. But if it's somebody who can look across all of the services and say, well, the problem that you've stated can be solved best by using a little of this, and a little of this, and a lot of that. And that, you're right, that's not a thing. That's not something that Microsoft measures. They don't have certifications that cross a lot of different apps and services. And that's really part of the reason why the Microsoft 365 community docs, which is sort of the parent effort of this maturity model, came into being. Vesa and I were talking about that difference between the way Microsoft thinks about things from a product perspective and the marketplace thinks about things from a solution perspective. It's not that Microsoft doesn't do that. It's that we're out here doing this every day and we have different opinions and we see different ways to build things together. So in a sense, what you're looking for is a bit of a unicorn. There aren't a lot of people out there who have this broad knowledge. I don't. I know some things about some things, and I think anybody on the call would probably say the same thing. Part of what we want to be able to do is make this a community where we can help each other fill in the gaps, right? So when I don't know something about retention, I talk to Joanne Klein or Erica Telly. Well, that's a benefit I have because I know who they are. But we want to help make sure that this is a part of that community effort that makes that collaboration, makes that sharing more common, which I know isn't quite an answer to your question, but I think when you talk about headhunters and say, I want somebody who does this thing you've never heard of with skills that you've never really understood, that's hard. That's hard. It's very hard, and I think it's more of more of a burden to find somebody at that level than it is to find somebody who's, and I'm not belittling anyone, but who can build a power app. That's a very targeted technical skill as opposed to a broad architectural skill.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do we like practitioners as a name? I guess, is it an M365 practitioner? Is that, a good name for it? You sort of think about architecture, and as Marc was saying, that does seem to cover most of the skills we're talking about. But then there's the softer skills, aren't there? Being able to facilitate, educate, glean those requirements, what it is that the customer really wants. Yeah,
I think that's a big piece of it. Exactly. To Marc's point is that, there's the path that you can learn about applications and how to use applications and how to create applications and how to even do, architectural things where you're connecting things together. This is more about holistic understanding of where are we as a business and what are we trying to accomplish and how do we think and what are the decisions we're making and how are we managing our processes and how are we managing our policies, and it's got a foot in both worlds of everything from application insight to governance and compliance, and now we're rolling that all together and making sure that what we are doing is what we say we're doing, and we're writing it down and we're training our people. And so I do think it's like a whole different side to look at.
All right, good.
I think one of the things we're hoping with these competency documents and the thinking around them, the document is one thing, and then the putting into practice is very much another. Is it's a scaffold that upon which you can start your journey. You can start to climb up through those maturity levels. And if you see a level where, geez, it sounds like we ought to be there, but we're here, and those elevation documents help. We try to help sort of define, well, if you're here and you want to go there, these are some of the things that you can do. So hopefully, and we would love your thoughts on this, but hopefully those documents actually give you some handle on what the skills are that you would need to do that. Right? Well, we need to do these 5 things based on the way our organization thinks about getting from level 200 to 500 in this competency. Well, we need these things. Maybe we need these skills because we have some of this in-house, but we don't have that. Retention would be a great example. We want to get really good at retention. Well, that's a complicated thing. And maybe you need to find somebody who either has those skills or you need to train somebody up with those skills so that you get good at it.
Good. Sorry, go ahead.
Is also, it depends whether you're coming at it from the technology side or the business side. Because I'm more business than technology, I think about this as being a business architect or maybe an analyst role, but for me, I'm using the kind of concepts that we've got built into the maturity model to design business functions. The technology supports that, but the business function and the organizational need comes first. And it's really changed my thinking. I'll give you an anecdote later on, but but it's really changed my thinking about how do I design processes and departments and teams in businesses. I really like the idea of a business architect.
Excellent. Good stuff. So I saw a couple hands go up and down. I'll tell you, why don't we, if we can, keep moving forward. We got a few slides left, and we want to make sure that we cover all of that information and bring those hands back. So I think we wanted to show some appreciation on our March attendees as well. So if we could go to that next slide. And this covers the upcoming community doc session. So thank you again for all the March attendees. And of course, we want to look forward to the next maturity model, which is going to be May 17th. And of course, the topic will be TBA. Keep those hands up for a moment, and we'll just get to that last section that we all enjoy, which is, what time is it, Emily? Picture time. Woo! All right. So feel free to turn on your camera if you would like. I'm going to take over, and why don't we do a little different scene? Everybody want to get a little creative? Let's see. We go with the the classroom for today. And let me share my screen so we can all see as well. Right. Here we go. So anybody would like to say hello to the community? Got some seats left. I see Marc is teacher's pet sitting up front, right, as he should be. Good job, everybody. All right, still got some seats. We're filling in. Yeah, still filling in. All right. All right, let's start waving. Show everybody the community. How's everybody doing? Smiles and wave and woo. All right, excellent. We will turn that into a GIF and share it out. And if you would like to take back over, Emily, we can get back into our slides. Thank you. All right, so 1 year, we are 1 year on. Now, of course, we already have some hands up, so congratulations to everyone who's been a part of this journey. Thank you, first and foremost, for being part of this journey and being interactive, and including yourself in this journey, contributing to it, coming to these calls, sharing what you've learned so that others can learn. Really, it wouldn't have been possible without you all, so thank you very, very, very much. We'll want to open it up now for some conversation, though. I think there are some statistics that might want to be covered, and I don't know if Marc or Simons, you would like to cover that? Or
to be honest, what we did was we captured some of the statistics from the survey that we did a year ago, and we're going to use them as fodder for conversation if nobody put their hand up. Looks like there are a lot of hands up, so I would suggest we have the discussion, and the slides will be there if somebody wants to take a look at it.
Fantastic. Okay, so let's start with David.
Hey everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on when you are in the world. One of the things that I want to bring to the table, and the whole reason why I asked when I saw that slide, was the fact that, Marc, as you know, I am very deep believer in the community as far as M365 user groups and the SharePoint Saturdays, the whole 9 yards, going all the way back ages ago, technologically speaking. Would it be of interest for me to actually delve into the whole concept? And this is almost going to sound like multi-level marketing pitch, if you will, for user adoption to actually take root by actually duplicating or cloning yourself through the utilization of office hours that turns from your team's office hours into an actual community.
Are you offering to do that?
Yes.
I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who would love to get some of your knowledge about what's worked at your company and what you've learned along the way. I don't know what the right forum is for you to do that. I mean, I think if you we could certainly have you join us on one of these calls and present some of that. But I think we can also talk about what you could offer from a written perspective or a video perspective, so that we've got something that is an artifact that can be used over time.
Absolutely. So I guess my question to you, Marc, is because I have no problem presenting, so I'd be more than happy to present to this group. I would definitely love the constructive criticism and feedback that this group would be able to offer me, because I'm constantly fine-tuning what I'm doing. But I think it's something that has, especially after post-COVID, post-pandemic, with the amount of IT that has been let go and laid to the wayside, despite the fact that IT was the only thing that saved most companies. I think being able to duplicate oneself is absolute priority at this time in order for them to even climb the maturity model. Because as you pointed out earlier, about 10 minutes ago, the fact of the matter is you need to have skill sets within the company, and IT is not going to be the one to do it. Simon said it perfectly. Business architects are definitely a need, and I think it's going to have to be a blend. And I think this way that I've actually taken from literally ground zero and built here at Staples, I think would be of really high value to pretty much everyone within the community.
David, when you talk about the duplication of oneself and going from office hours to community, are you thinking that that's a skill or a capability you build up within a company, or is that does it apply to us as a global community, or is it absolutely both, or a hybrid of both? What's the scope, I guess,
yes,
is my question.
So the answer is I'm targeting internally within each individual company, but at the same time, communities, as you know, I mean, we're a great example of that. We are all different communities, we're different companies, we're from all over the place. We're from technology aspect, we're from business aspect, but at the same time, and that's what has always been right about the SharePoint / Office 365 community, is the fact you could have a CEO sitting next to a developer who hasn't seen the light of day for the last month, to someone who has been sales and marketing and does a whole rah-rah bit. I mean, and everything in between. That was SharePoint Saturdays, and that is what made the community work, is because of the fact that everyone was seeing things differently. I like to use the analogy of a Rubik's Cube that's completed, put in the center. If we're all around a conference table and I say I see blue, red, and white, Simon, you might be on the opposite side of the table. I'll say, you're like, yeah, I see blue, but I see green and yellow on my side. Why? Your perspective of the same object is different. That is absolutely why this community and why the maturity model, I am such a firm believer in, because of the fact we need the perspectives of many in order to be able to make this even work. Because a lot of times, when back in the days when I was a consultant, going from company to company, a lot of times technology dictated everything, and they're like, we know what you need, but they didn't see the other perspectives. And so it was like trying to fit a glass shoe on a horse. Not happening.
Okay, so I love this stuff. I would love to pick up the conversation with you, David. I think that what you're saying resonates with what I've kicked around as part of this employee experience piece. There's something that came out of our thinking when we were doing the business process. I think it was business process. It might have been collaboration. Was this concept of non-task-based collaboration? Where are the water cooler conversations? Where are people from disparate disciplines, sort of bouncing ideas off each other and creating, synergizing those to create something new? I think that there's a danger, especially in our post-pandemic world, that we're not synthesizing new ideas because we're not getting cross-pollination over serendipitous meetings. So exploring that, and if there's a process that you think you've got a handle on for driving some of that, then that's really interesting.
I do, and I would definitely be more than happy to share that with everyone.
Cool. I think it's powerful stuff.
Teamwork makes the dream work, right? Everybody, I love the different perspective. I love the Rubik's Cube illustration there, David. Very, very cool. All right, Ralph, you've got your hand up.
Hey there, guys. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Let me take the hand down already before I forget. All right. So one of the things that has come up earlier in the chats before I got ungloriously knocked out on the internet over here was what the Power Platform folks are doing, which is their own maturity model, so to speak, sort of like a baby version of this, if for lack of a better term. But the reason for that is it helps them focus on essentially that aspect, right? Just the Power Platform, getting it, let's just say, established, adopted, and everything else, used as a adoption tool. The act of assessing will say, hey, we got this stuff. We're not paying for it, or we are paying for it. Let's use it. And where are we in the usage scale? How do we measure ourselves? There was funded programs. In fact, there still is, and I don't think it's a secret to talk about, with partners, potentially any company that wants to, say, establish the COE or do those INA days or any of those. those partners can deliver, and Microsoft will help fund those. In other words, Satya's got some money between the cushions, and before the fiscal is over, come and get that done. And the whole idea, of course, it promotes adoption, but most importantly, accelerates you through the process. The act of that includes that assessment piece. And that was the most interesting thing to me, because when we asked them, well, how would you like us to assess? Well, here's the score. I'm like, so how do you do it? Because apparently PowerCat's been doing this. The PowerCat team themselves have been doing it. And I imagine partners have been taking it and doing it on their own, or other people that have been doing it. Say, well, the M365 folks have been doing that, but everyone's been doing it separately. What I never understood was, so if you give a score, how do you know that score is something that you can rely upon? Is it because this person gave it that's a valid score? Or if they did it themselves, is that considered a valid score? How was that? So that was the question that I was trying to come up with on the M365 side. It's like, well, if you assess your maturity model over there, it's more complex because it's more of a. I remember someone had made a spreadsheet with like a graph on it that was really complicated. Could the score be a number, a metric? Because again, we're trying to get down to the point of the metric. I want to know where I'm at. If you give me a number, that's the easiest way to measure where I'm at and where I'm going. The problem is, though, if you can't agree on the scale or the number or where that is, how are you going to, say, share with somebody else? It's like if Microsoft came after the fact and said, what's your maturity score? And you gave them a number. It's like, okay, great. Now we know what to do next, or here's where we go next. Here are the next steps, blah, blah, blah. Or here's where you should be thinking of what you're doing. Is that the purpose of the maturity score? Or is it just simply an exercise in self-realization? It's like, okay, here's what I am. Here's who I am, what I am, and what I should do. And then that's it. It's really not an end game or anything else. So a bit philosophical, but a bit getting back to the point where if I wanted to create dashboards out of the M365 side, it's hard for me to do that if I can't measure it, or if I don't have like a standard that I can actually use that's agreed upon by the group or by everybody else, or at least by Microsoft. Does Microsoft have the say, or is it really the community now that has the say? In the case of the PowerCat, actually, frankly, they have to say. But over here, this is different. I think this is really the community making this piece. So I'm just wondering, are we at that point where we can actually say a 300 level for this particular item is what we all agree that it is, that these are the points, or does everyone still have their own concept of what a 300 is? Monster discussion.
So I think my view is that it goes back to the root definitions of the different levels. So if we look at the slides that Simon talked over earlier, level 300 talks about having a managed process that is mostly under control and mostly adopted across most of the organization most of the time. And if we can demonstrate that that's true, then I think that is evidence that particular part of the organization is running at level 300. So that defined level, I think, has a definition. So I think we've got a benchmark, but it's not as easy as saying, so answer these 6 multi-choice questions and tick these boxes, and if you pass, then you're certified. I think it still varies absolutely from organization to organization, but you can say we can demonstrate that we're running at level 300. And back when dinosaurs roamed the land, I was an ISO 9000 auditor, and if I'd been presented with this as my touchstone, I could go into an organization and assess what level parts of that organization were in on this very simple set of criteria.
Right. So you see the issue there is like the simple points, but those points could themselves have nuances, and that's what it turned out that the PowerCat folks actually had. They had the nuances. Pardon me. They had the nuances at that level, and once I understood that, it's like, okay, now I can actually run this. Is it okay if I share my screen really quick to show you something? If that's okay, I'm not sure if I'm allowed.
Just keep in mind it's a family show, Ralph.
Oh, no problem. Let me remove the critters that have been sacrificed over here. Pardon me. And of course emails that might look crazy. Stand by. Do you see the lovely outdoors?
Yep.
Pardon me. Oh boy, allergies in full swing. So, for example, when I'm doing an assessment, on the PowerCat side. So here's just an example. This is just my training thing. We talk about the maturity model. We give the pieces and the pillars. Oh gosh, I'm sorry. So there's layers, and then we go through and we describe the individual pieces that make up the score. And at some point, we can actually give them a dashboard with a score, a composite score, and a score across the various layers, and then give them colors, for example, to give you an idea where you are, and then top actions. Essentially, here's the thing: when we do any kind of assessment or maturity assessment, it's useless unless you do something with it. Sorry. So you could recommend, you show what the risks of not doing them, identify actions, and then proceed. That's essentially what we were doing. But we were trying to do this in a way that Microsoft agreed with us that this is the common way. This is based off what PowerCat did, and we believe this is pretty much the same thing they're doing. Oh gosh, I hit it wrong, didn't I? Hang on.
This is an emotional subject for Ralph. He's getting all choked up. So
I'm getting all choked up. Oh gosh, but this has been very, very good. We've been getting very good feedback with this kind of assessment. Essentially, we gave them like, wow, here's the starting point. And then we gave them the ritual. All right, this ritual is useless if you just take this report and put it away somewhere, or you share it at everyone and use it to beat them on the heads to say, why aren't you doing this? That's not the point of this report. The point of this is every 3 months, you're going to be reviewing it. Where are we at? How are we doing? A year, maybe do it again, or pick the period that fits your organization. The concept is if you go down the path of doing an adoption and assessment, stay on the path. Don't just do it for the sake of the lip service to say, I did it and here's where I'm at. Okay, we're done. The rest of it comes through, but it's easy if you give them a tool to do it with. And I think this is what we're hoping to see as a tool from the COE folks. Maybe, there's no guarantees on that. If not, we're going to try to build one ourselves. But, I like that. Who did the spreadsheet? The spreadsheet was great. I'm trying to remember who did that a while back. The one for the M365 side?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was a team effort. We built that collectively, but absolutely, that tooling did have that idea of being able to do longitudinal assessments, so you could see what your progress was over time.
I think, Ralph, as a consultant, what you're describing is what you do in a consulting project, and that's what that's part of what Emily and I do as we're working with our clients.
Right.
I think what we're trying to do with the maturity model, at least at this point, is give you give the community some of the tools that you can use in order to do that kind of consulting project yourselves inside your organization.
Yes.
And we're trying to be a bit less prescriptive than we are when somebody's paying us to help them go from here to here. Right? Because there are so many variations on this and so many different ways that people think about it. I get that everybody wants to have a metric that is going to, they can pin their hat on. And I think what we're trying to do is give you enough information that you can come up with those metrics yourselves, but that your organization might be somewhat different. I think there's a lot of subjectivity in here. What I always suggest to people when they're reading one of these articles is to, read the levels. And when you get to the point where you're like, oh, that doesn't really describe us all that much, you go up one, and that's where you are.
Yeah.
So it's like even just getting to that point is more than what a lot of organizations have ever done. They're just like frantically trying to get everything done, and they're not thinking about things holistically. What we're trying to give is some tools that help people think holistically and then decide what actions they want to take out of that. If they want to hire somebody like you or any other consulting company that is good at this stuff, that's one way to solve that problem. But it doesn't always make sense for an organization to do that. And they have to do it inside.
Right, exactly. The idea, though, is here's what I'm looking at. When you do enough of these things, or if there are enough of these things out there, at some point there's going to be some sort of way to start putting them side by side and say, hey, here are some commonality. And all of a sudden, get baby Skynet on it, and all of a sudden they find a pattern that says here's where the actual number is that we're looking at. A little bit of AI. I mean, not to be facetious, but truly, when you have enough numbers, that's when the machine can start making use of the numbers. Because while things remain subjective and out of touch, they're just numbers.
I mean, this always reminds me of my knowledge management days back in the mid 90s. People were always saying, well, what's the ROI for making everyone smarter? I can't give you that. That's just not possible, right? I mean, what we would try to do is find anecdotes where we could say, well, if you hadn't done this, then this wouldn't have happened, and there was a benefit there. Does everyone agree? Okay. Well, that anecdote actually matters. But it's not like you went from 14.2 to 14.29. It's just that's not what this stuff is. If people are looking for, like incredibly significant numerical changes, I'm not sure this is the right way to be thinking about it. I think, and I'm a huge fan of the balanced scorecard and knowledge management and all this stuff about having metrics and understanding how you're doing against those metrics over time. But I don't think that generically it's realistic for us to try to come up with metrics that are any more than, here's what level 300 for this competency looks like. And these are the things that you ought to be doing. And then you take that list of stuff and decide which things actually matter for you as an organization.
Things apply exactly,
because we're likely to have some things in there that you just don't care about, or that you care about a lot and we've missed, which we'd love to hear about. Right. So again, I think we're trying to stay a level back from what you're suggesting on purpose.
Okay.
Is that not the right? I mean, you tell us. I mean, if that doesn't make sense.
So it's I think why it makes it hard for us to come in or for folks to say you should maybe do this for yourselves. And the idea is they want to find purpose for it, but you mentioned you have it. You pointed it out. It's what are the steps? If I'm here and I want to get there, what are the steps? What we're seeing over here that we're getting is the guidance. Right. In the end of the day, it's all about how do we improve ourselves, period. It doesn't matter if there's going to be a specific number. The concept is the act of improving is really, that's the journey, right? The act of improving. If you have a number for it, that's great, but it's more important that you actually take the journey. But if you don't know what you're going to do next, then how do you know which way to go? Right.
And that's how I was looking. And that's how we've tried to lay the documents out. The competency documents try and show you what the principles are for going up the levels. If you go from here to there, you need to start doing these kinds of things. And then the elevate documents, as we get those developed, they are a bit more sort of hands-on. It's okay, so now do this, turn this thing on, build that thing, use these technologies. Right. They're still not prescriptive, but they give you a little bit more sort of tactical guidance.
Just also need to include if you don't do this, here's what'll probably happen. It'll probably slow you down. The concept, if you don't do your oil change, okay, fine. Guess what?
And more importantly, I think a lot of times people think they know where they're at, but they're incorrect, because I think I talk to people all day long as well as a consultant who think that they're at this level. But once we kind of sit and look at, here's the things that at this level these people are doing, and it's consistent across organizations, they realize that maybe they're not where they thought they were. And I think sometimes that's just as important as understanding what are all the steps and what are all the things I need to do. It's clearly and honestly really coming in touch with where are we really, so that we can, back to that always improving concept, so that we know where we need to go, but where are we now? And so I work with people all day long to figure out where are we actually now.
First step in any 12-step program is admitting you have a problem.
Thank you. Exactly.
Houston,
I think,
in fact, I used that in my last meeting. Exactly that.
Even just taking that step, even just saying, okay, we actually want to understand how we're doing, is a question that people don't necessarily ask, and they only do it when their boss is like breathing down their neck because of some board presentation or something. I mean, ideally, we're giving enough. Again, it's a framework, which makes it sound like it's rigid. It's not, but it's a framework that you could use in order to come up with, here's where we are. And 6 months ago, this was what we thought we were. And here's the difference. I could do that with the documents that we have out there for one of our clients. And I think that alone is a huge step forward.
Yes.
To be honest, we get questions about metrics. We get questions about infrastructure. We get questions about security. There are a lot of things that people ask questions about, like, when are you going to have this stuff? Well, whenever we all come up with it, right? It's not us. And I'm not pointing a finger at you, Ralph, except that you're right there. If you think you've got something better, or you think you've got an artifact that would be a great part of this mix, we would love to have it, because we're looking at this from our own perspectives. And I think, sorry, I'm gonna not know the name. Somebody was asked. Sorry, I apologize. Somebody was asking about, well, what about regional things or different parts of the globe, because some of the needs are different in different places. I'm not sure that's true, but if it is true, then what works in wherever, Australia. Send me something that addresses the things that happen in Australia that's different, and we can figure out how that fits into this. Again, we're not everybody. We're only ourselves. Everybody sees the world through their own slice of the pie. So, if somebody's in GCC, they're going to have a very different view of how all this works than I am, because I just don't do that. And so we would love those additional perspectives.
This has all been fantastic conversation. I just want to be sensitive and respectful to everybody's time. We have about 2 minutes left before we have to close out. So I think this has been a good conversation. Definitely has sparked a lot of passion here. I think perhaps maybe there'd be an opportunity to continue to reflect, and I was hoping to maybe have a little opportunity to kind of ask, like, what have you learned in the last year from the core team? Maybe we give some thought to that, and in the next month we come back and maybe start with that with whoever our guest or the topic is, because I think it's important. We're the core team, Marc, Emily, Simons, and Sharon, kind of reflecting on what you've learned in the last year, maybe what surprised you in the last year that you've learned since then. I think would be really helpful for the community to be able to feel like they're getting more information and value out of the program as well. So maybe that's an idea. But I think without any additional information, it might be good to wrap up the recording and thank everybody for the time. The next session is May 17th. 10 a.m. Eastern time, 7 a.m. Pacific. You can always sign up at a variety of these. Get the survey, discussions on GitHub, YouTube. We'll be posting this up on YouTube in the slide deck. So I think on behalf of the core team, thank you everyone for attending. Any final parting words from the core team?
Well, we were a bit concerned that we would have to try and find ways to fill the time of this session, not having a star speaker. And I think we've maybe, if we're optimistic, got through a third of the material that we thought we could cover. So we'll pick up some more of this next time. But yeah, great conversation.
So well, thank you everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks all.
Stay safe, all.
Bye,
Watch out
everybody.
for those allergies.